everybody, to a new edition of UFO Man Live and also UFO Expo TV Live. We want to welcome viewers from both channels to tonight's discussion with our very special guest, Mike Bara from Mike Bara from Ancient Aliens. Thank you, Tom. And my host tonight is Tom Reed from UFO Expo TV and UFO Expo, and from UFO Man as well. Rhiannon Ellie is also from UFO Man and UFO Expo and Sky Tribe Mysteries.
That was a mouthful, man.
Yep.
Yeah. And as far as last names, I've been called a lot of things too. So, whatever. Right. So.
Well, I call you Tom Reed, the legend, the myth.
Okay.
I call him Thom.
Thomas. Yeah.
Thomas. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I actually do have a couple friends that call you Thom.
I'm sure. I got a lot of friends that call me other things, like I said. Anyway, I think tonight's going to be a little different, right? We're going to be doing something kind of unique, and I was looking forward to it for a long time because it is in the what's the word I'm looking for, in the flavor of what's happened recently with the UAP hearings and the different departments, Homeland and that kind of thing. This also works its way in, or has a flavor that kind of mirrors what's going on. So, Mike, I think you know what I'm talking about. It's like, do we really trust the government at all anyway? We're all waiting to hear this and that, but then again, I don't know. So, let's turn it over to Mike, man. And by the way, it's good seeing you again, buddy.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been a while. It's been a busy week for me. It's been a hell week. So I was late. This is my ninth broadcast this week. I was on Coast to Coast. By the way, I mentioned North Carolina, the UFO Expo coming up North Carolina, over and over again, and lots of other things. And I got some other projects. That's just been really busy. So, to pick up on the theme, that you hit on right there, I think we're at a point where anybody who's awake in even the slightest little bit, their trust of government at this point is absolutely zero. It's got to be none, and that's because they've lied to us about everything. I mean, just yesterday, we came across this document that has been out since, I guess, July, that basically says that everything Vladimir Putin said about biolabs. Sorry, should I have said that? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Don't want to get you demonetized, but it's all true. It's right in the U.S. government. There are 46 labs that the U.S. government, right in our own documents, State Department documents, that they financed and controlled. So how can you believe anything they say? Well, the answer is you can't. And all the wars that have been fought probably throughout history for the most part, but certainly in the 20th century and beyond, even before that, since the American Revolution, have been financial. And everything is financial. And right now we're in a situation, Tommy, where I think we're looking at we're on the brink of a financial collapse. And there's these rumors out there about Operation Sandman, which is that 100 countries on the same day are all going to turn their treasuries bonds in.
At the same time.
Say, we would like our money. Mm-hmm. And that is instant bankruptcy. It is the instant end of the U.S. petrodollar, of the fiat currency dollar that we all know and love and have spent an awful lot.
There's a number of reasons for that too, because you have to have circulating currency to be able to reinvest it and make interest. And so if everyone calls for it at the same time, it's not like they're entitled to it, but at the same time, that drains the bank of every friggin' penny they have, and then more because they've invested.
And the only solution then would be to print trillions more to try to cover that, which would make the currency worth even less. So the whole thing collapses over the course of a day or two, and you have everybody making bank runs, and it's all just going to go to shit before. Excuse me. It's all just going to go to heck before. I don't know if this is a family show or not, but I got to watch my own.
Doesn't matter.
Before you know it, and we're literally on the brink of that. And whether there's an Operation Sandman or not, something's going to trigger this any day now. And the thing is that what I try to get across to people, I'm trying to get them to understand, is that this is by design. Mm-hmm. This is all planned. This is something that's been going on since this country was founded. And so few people know the truth. Oh, there's the Mothman. That's cool. There was an excellent Y-Files episode about Mothman the other night. And most people don't realize that that's what's driven everything. So what I like to do is do this thing that I call the secret history of the United States. And at UFO conferences, people want to talk about aliens. So I don't get to talk about this stuff very much, but
However, at the same time, government plays a part in that. So there is a link to where you're going with this because
government
it has to do with being transparent, right?
Right. And government is absolutely behind all of this and really knows it. So what I kind of want to do is go back.
I want to interrupt you one more time. That's what you just said. Government's behind it. There are 15 branches of the government, right?
Well, many.
There's Homeland, there's Justice, there's a Department of Interior. So when people say government doesn't want this and government doesn't want that, there are a lot of different branches of the government. And so my question to you is, do you think they communicate with each other, or do you think they continue to work independent?
Both. They do work independently for their own objectives and goals, like NSA and CIA are both trying to get their own piece of the pie, the territory, but they also do coordinate on certain key issues. For instance, the laptop from hell. That was coordinated between all the intelligence agencies and the news media. So the news media is in on it too, to try to sell us this lie. And the lie is that you are indebted, that you have to pay to live on this planet. That's the lie that they tell over and over and over again. And it all comes from this idea of making you a debt slave. And they have been extremely successful in doing that. The other thing is, Tom, that's really important about what you just said. I'd like to look at you, but my camera's over here, which means I'm away from you. But anyway, most of the government agencies you're talking about are illegal. They are extra constitutional because the New Deal, which was implemented in 1933, was all illegal. And the only way you could make it legal is by declaring the United States to be in a state of emergency. And we have been in a constant state of emergency since 1933. If you go to the White House website, they should be posting what we're in a state of emergency for. Now, of course, we had the whole vid thing that they used to truck in boxes of what into certain counting centers in 2020. We know all about that, but there's like one time I went in and I found out we were under a state of emergency because of the dire threat posed to the United States by the nation of Serbia and Montenegro. But because we have to be in a state of emergency, otherwise, overnight, IRS, CIA, FBI, all of these agencies, agriculture, energy, they disappear. They become illegal overnight if we're not in a state of emergency. So I think the best way to get rid of all these agencies is going to be just to end the state of emergency. And they all become instantly illegal, and there's nothing anybody can do about that. So let's go back. I do have a presentation, if you guys don't mind, and I'll just kind of take you through the hidden history, the secret history of the United States. Is that something I can do? You okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep, go for it.
We kind of wanted to do the Social Security thing too.
Well, that is at the end of this. So
okay.
You're going to get it.
Well, basically, there's not going to be much to be social on.
Right. I have no slides.
And Mike, real quick, I heard that there was 2 governments running the U.S. Do you believe that?
Well, we're going to get into that. And yes, I do. Yes, there are
too.
2 governments. I don't know which one is running the U.S. right now. It's like, which U.S.? The corporation or the
the corporate? Well, the ones you don't know about,
or the republic. The republic is the question. So we're gonna talk about all that stuff, and you guys can stop me, even though I tend to just sort of not take
ramble like I do.
Good.
Shut up, Tom. Okay, I'm going to hit the share screen, and I'm going to share my presentation. Where is my presentation? Hang on.
If you're going to share a video, make sure you click that little box in the bottom.
No, I'm not going to share any video. I'm going to just go back here and go to Window and share my PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. And it's not my Amaranth PowerPoint. Thank God.
Do we need to do a SpaceX space launch?
Yeah, it's up. Can you guys see this? Can you see the plane flying?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
Yes.
Hopefully the audience can too. Okay, so where I started to look at this was in 1999. But around the year 2001, of course, we had this terrible event, 9/11. And on 9/11, Yes, 4 commercial jetliners were hijacked and they were flown into buildings, and it sent the United States and the whole world into a 20-year-long war in the Middle East that still isn't over. So the question is, what's this all about? What's behind this? Well, let's go back to the beginning of the formation of the United States. When it was formed, it was basically the Declaration of Independence, which declared in a documented form that we are going to go our own way. England. We are no longer going to be under the crown of England. We are going to do our own thing on July 4th, 1776. Yeah, whatever. And it started the American Revolutionary War. Now, what everybody thinks is that we fought that war and we won it. So we put out this Declaration of Independence. It was signed by all these people, including, John Hancock, who's got the nicest, beautiful signatures. It's just beautiful. And started this whole process. So after that, what they did is they wrote the rules for the government, which are called the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the states. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Articles of Confederation, but they existed long before the American Constitution did. And they were the rules by which the country was supposed to be run. But people felt like, well, they're a little vague and we're not really sure if that's enough. So we want a constitution. At least that's what they tell us in school. That's not true. These were the rules of the republic. And basically, that was what we were fighting for, is to become a republic. So we had the American Revolutionary War. We had at Washington crossing the Delaware, in the winter of 1776, I guess it was, fighting the British, driving away the redcoats. The American militias formed their armies and fought the war. But what happened is at a certain point, the war became unprofitable for the British. It became a pain in the butt. So the standard story is that Cornwallis surrendered to Washington at Yorktown because he was defeated militarily. The British were not defeated militarily in any way, shape, or form. What had happened was the United States government, as it existed, had basically gotten a bunch of debt that they had been saddled with. They got loans from the Rothschilds Bank of France, from the Warburg banks in Germany, to finance the war against the British. So what the British said is, okay, let's end this thing. You guys can go your own way on the condition, and we'll secure your debt to the Rothschilds because the French suck and we don't like them, on the condition that you give us the national property of your government. Any property that your federal government has, we control. Not that we own, but we control. And so we agreed to that. And we formed a republic, and we had 13 original colonies, 13 states initially, and everything went well for a while. But what the British also insisted on in these various different articles that they forced us to put into these various agreements was that we have a written financial document. Well, that written financial document became the Constitution. So anybody know where the word Constitution comes from? Anybody? No,
I give up.
Okay. It comes from the term constitutor. Well, what is a constitutor? A constitutor is someone who secures the debt of another person. If Tom says, hey, a cosigner, basically, I want to buy this car, but I don't quite have the money. I can't get the loan without you, Mike. Will you cosign on it for me? So if I don't pay the debt, you'll pay the debt. And I say,
right.
Sure, I do that because you're my friend and I know you're going to pay it, so it's not a problem. So the Constitution is a financial document. And if you look at certain words that are capitalized and you put them all together, it paints a very different picture. But that was ratified in 1789. And when that happened in 1789, the United States ceased to be a republic and became a democracy because we couldn't pay our debts. Now, what's the difference? A republic is governed by elected representatives. It's governed by an established set of laws. The protection of individual rights is paramount. The protection of property rights is paramount. It's ideal for large and diverse populations, and it avoids extremes like mobocracy and tyranny, which is exactly what we're living through right now. In a democracy, everyone participates in every decision. The majority rules. There's no protection of individual rights. Anybody know a president that was arrested for no reason a week ago or indicted? No
No idea.
protection of property rights, which means people's children, are being taken away because they refuse to get the
Shot.
It's not practical for large countries, and it always ends in turbulence and violence. Well, does any of that sound familiar? So what happened is that the U.S. at that point ceased to be a republic, which had control over its own destiny, and because of its debts that it had to pay to the British crown, we became a democracy. So the British insisted on the formation of the Bank of the United States. It's the first central bank ever created in America, and it had a 20-year agreement. What do they call it?
Statue or something.
Yeah, for statute for 20 years. So that was formed in 1791. So a couple years after that, and this was for the British to basically receive all the monies that they were supposed to receive as payment for this national debt that we had incurred, and to make sure that they were getting their cut. That's basically what it was set up for. Well, guess what? It expired in 1811. And so the United States did not, under Jackson, I think it was Jackson, did not reinstate the Bank of the United States. They didn't give it another 20-year term. And the British said, oh, no, you don't. And then what happened? The War of 1812 happened. The British invaded. They took over large swaths of the country, and they burned down the White House. But the first place they went when they marched on Washington, D.C. was not the White House or the Congress. It was the courthouse. Why? Because in the courthouse were the titles and deeds to all the property of the United States national government. And they held those, and they said, you don't get these back, all these deeds, until you pay us our money and set up a new central bank, which they promptly did.
So let me ask you a question. So are you saying at this point we were still in debt to them, even though the 20-year window had?
Yeah, because they were charging us interest, and the interest was outside.
Oh, so we didn't account for the interest.
No. So
Gotcha.
So at this point, we're in now. The bankruptcy that we were in is international bankruptcy. International bankruptcy has a 70-year cycle. So 1789 was basically when your bankruptcy is discharged. Discharged does not mean you're forgiven. It means you have to come back 70 years later and come up with a new plan to pay it off, which is either you go back into bankruptcy for 70 more years or you pay it off. One of those two. That's your only two choices. So that's what discharging a bankruptcy means, whether it's personal or international, because they assume if you've acquired enough debts to declare bankruptcy, you'll be dead by the time your 70 years come up. So in essence, it's a forgiveness of debt, but it's really not. And nations don't die. They keep going generally. So what happened? What was 70 years after 1789? Well, that was 1859. So what happened in 1859? Well, there was a civil war that began in the early 1860s, a couple of years later. It always takes a year or two for this to happen. But what happened was that we had added a bunch of southern states in the intervening period. And in 1859, the North, the Union, went to the South and said, we have $500 million in debt to the Crown of England and the Rothschild Bank of France because they had resold some of it. And we have to pay it off. And the South said, it's not our debt. It's your Revolutionary War debt. You guys, you 13 colonies pay it. Screw you. We're going to form our own country. So that's what they did. It had nothing to do with slavery. Nothing to do with slavery. Absolutely 100% about the financial arrangement and the southern states wanting to form the Confederacy as opposed to having to be part of this debt-ridden ex-republic, this democracy of the United States. So, of course, the Rothschilds and the English were not going to have any of that. So they financed the North. They created Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party. And they made slavery this moral outrage because they needed a moral outrage. If they told people, well, we have to go to war with our southern brothers because these original 13 colonies on paper owe $500 million, which of course was a fortune in 1859. to these European banks, that wouldn't have happened. So in order to get the war and to defeat the South, they had to have some other reason. So they came up with slavery as the reason. Now, the Confederacy, of course, the war went back and forth between the Confederacy and the Union. And people think that the Confederacy was defeated and that they ceased to exist. That's actually not true. The Confederate States of America still exists as a legal entity, and its currency is still valid. Lee did not do anything at Appomattox except surrender his sword to Grant. He did not surrender. The Confederacy never officially signed any surrender papers, and technically it still exists. Technically, it could still break off and form its own nation. So that's pretty interesting stuff. So that was how the bankruptcy was discharged in 1859. What the agreement was after the North won was that, okay, we gave you our national property. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give you our state property. The individual states, which have now been forced back into the Union, all the southern states, they're all going to lose their sovereignty. We gave up the sovereignty of our national government. Now we're giving up the sovereignty of our states. And again, the British and the Rothschilds demanded modifications. There was a 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which was originally set at, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. What that means is there are no titles of nobility in the United States. That was the original 13th Amendment, which was voted on and ratified before the Civil War. It has nothing to do with slavery. It is totally says you can't have a title. You can't be a viscount. You can't be an esquire, which is what lawyers are, attorneys are. You can't be a king. You can't be any of these things in the United States. This is going to be a nation of men of equal stature. So they took that out and they passed a new amendment, which was having to do with slavery. That's right there on the screen, ratified on December 6, 1865. Now, everybody talks about the 1871 formation of the American Corporation. That's true. It was formed. It took them 5 or 6 years to work out the arrangements and write up this Act of 1871, which turned the United States from, we had been a republic, then we were a democracy. It turned us into a corporation in 1871. Now, the republic still existed. The republic was still functioning under the original Articles of Confederation, and it was not encumbered by the Constitution. So nothing that's in the Constitution applies to the republic, but it was in the background. Now, okay, who are the people in the republic? I'll tell you who they are. The people, for instance, that are the electors in the Electoral College are all citizens of the republic. They're the ones who decide who the president really is. Because when we vote, our votes don't count. The only vote that counts, according to the Constitution, is that of the electors.
Right.
So people that are of a superior status are citizens of the republic operating in the democracy.
So I have a question, if I can jump in here for a second.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Okay, so it's interesting you talk about that because most people think George Washington was our first president. He wasn't. John Hanson was.
Yep.
And so my question is, when he was elected, was there the same electoral system in place?
No, I don't think so, because the Constitution is the one that established that, So
right.
If he was elected before 1789 or appointed by the representatives of the republic, then
1781 maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. So all this stuff happened, and it was only really, really highly educated and rich people who understood what was going on. So okay, you got 1789, 1859. The next 70 years after 1859 is 1929. But 20 years before that, what happened? A bunch of bankers got together at a swank hotel on Jekyll Island and formed the United States Federal Reserve System, which is not a government agency. It is a private banking concern. And all the usual suspects were there: the British Crown, the Rothschilds Bank of France, the Warburg Pincus banks of Germany, the Russian banks. Everybody was there. And they got together and they said, okay, we got this bankruptcy cycle coming up in 1929. What are we going to do? I'm sorry about that. How are we going to fix this? So they came up with the plan, and the plan was to create the income tax. So Wilson declared the income tax is going to be a constructive act to aid business, right? Woodrow Wilson declared this. He put us almost immediately into World War I, which is how you generate revenue, is through wars. That's how countries make money, is through wars. So they adopted the income tax. Was one of the ways that they decided they were going to pay it off. That was the first thing. And then in 1929, what happened in 1929? The stock market crashed. Stock market crashed. It led us into the food lines, the Great Depression, and then that created the New Deal.
Now, I got a question for you, too. Do you think the crash of the stock market was the idea of the top upper crust, if you will, to sell now, crash it, buy back in at 20 cents on the dollar, so there would be the separation between, the middle class, the poor, and the wealth?
Yeah, that was part of it. And that's how Kennedy made his money.
Sure.
One of the ways the Kennedy family made their money, along with bootlegging. But you had all of this stuff go on. And so then you created a desperate political situation into which stepped FDR, 33rd degree Scottish Rite.
Now the country's in a mess, and they can activate these other departments, right?
So they passed the Gold Act. So what they did then is they took away all your gold and silver. So the real money went away, and it was replaced with paper. Now, we were still on a gold standard until 1971, but it was replaced with paper. So what they did basically is all the gold coins, all the gold bullion, all the gold certificates had to be turned back into the newly fangled 20-year. They knew if they came up with the Federal Reserve right in 33 or 32 that there'd be a lot of pushback. So they created it 20 years earlier, used it to collect income tax. And then they passed the Gold Act, where they took away all the gold. Well, so what they had done was this: the first bankruptcy cycle in 1789. We said, okay, we're bankrupt. Here's the Constitution. You own our national government. In 1859, we said, okay, we're bankrupt. Here's the keys to our state governments. Our states no longer have individual rights, because that's what the Civil War was about. Are the states going to run their own show, or is the federal government going to control everything? And then in 1929, we had the stock market crash and the New Deal, which created all these extra constitutional agencies like the FBI and the IRS and all the people that are doing all the terrible things today. And they took away our real money. If you look at a 1933 Black's Law dictionary, real money is 0.999 pure gold or silver, and nothing else is real money. Now, the interesting thing about this is that means that we're supposedly $31 trillion in paper debt, but all we have to do is mint a 0.9999 pure gold coin in the denomination of $31 trillion. We can take that to the Federal Reserve and say, here, you're $31 trillion.
Yeah, we're all paid back.
It's all paid off, because I just paid off your paper, your monopoly money with real money. So the plan was then, okay, we've had to pay all this money out, and we've had to do all this stuff. We've taken in all the gold. What are we going to do now? Well, then they had to start a war to get America out of the Great Depression. Enter Hitler and World War II. So
before you go into that, didn't the banks also use fractional reserve notes to pay off their debt?
Yes, fractional reserve banking, but banks don't pay off their debts. Banks just steal money from you. They don't have any money. They actually don't have any money. It's only created by people. So
they give it to them temporarily so they can reinvest it, keep the interest, and charge.
And they get 10 times. We'll talk about that in a second when we get to the actual stuff that goes on. So they started World War II. The Germans invaded. They overran France. The war went back and forth, but the U.S. still was not involved in it. So the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. and got America into the war. And then after that, of course, we had, the things went poorly on the Russian front. The Germans were defeated. They tried to fight back at the Battle of the Bulge, but eventually we conquered Germany and Imperial Japan, dropped atomic bombs on them, which, by the way, those atomic bombs were not American bombs. They were German bombs with German triggers, German designs, and German uranium in them. So we didn't have enough uranium to make 2 bombs in 1945, or 3 bombs. We actually set off 3 bombs. So that basically brought America out of the Great Depression at what cost? The cost of Imperial Japan and Germany and most of Europe. So they came up with something called the Marshall Plan, which was basically, how do we get Germany and Japan, Europe and Asia back on their feet? And so what they did is they printed currency. They printed the new paper money for Japan and the new paper money for Germany. They printed the Deutschmark for Germany, and they printed the new yen for Japan. And there was hyperinflation for 10 years. It was worthless, but we held trillions and trillions and trillions of their money in our treasury because we printed it. So 10 years after the war, both the yen and the mark, Deutschmark, revalued to like $3 to the US to the US dollar. So what that meant is if you were holding 1 million Deutschmarks, they went from being worth $100 to $1 million, to $2 million, to $3 million overnight when the revaluation took place. So the U.S. government paid off the Marshall Plan, paid off World War II, paid back a bunch of payments to the banks of Europe, the Rothschilds and the British Crown and the Warburgs, by doing the Marshall Plan. So that was what they did back in those days, and it left Europe completely devastated. Well, flash forward to 1991, and Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. And this gave us a really good idea. We said, wait a minute, let's go in there and throw this guy out of Kuwait, which we did at the cost of lives and a lot of money. And guess what we did then? The United States Treasury then printed the new Kuwaiti dinar, the new currency. They had to get rid of the old currency because Saddam had stolen all that. So they reprinted that, and they did the same exact thing. They held on to it for 7 years after the first Gulf War. And in 1998, late 1998, the Kuwaiti dinar revalued at like $3.21 to the US dollar, $3.21 to the US dollar.
So we manufacture the stability of other countries.
Yep.
And their monetary system.
Yeah. Now, if you remember what happened in 1999, we had been running budget deficits for 20 years at that point. But in 1999, all of a sudden, we had a budget surplus. Remember that? We didn't have a deficit. So what happened? What happened was when we revalued the Kuwaiti dinar, we had trillions of Kuwaiti dinars, and all of a sudden our treasury was full. So we'd done it again. So then somebody got the great idea, hey, let's do this for the 1999 bankruptcy, because 1789, 70 years to 1859, 70 years to 1929, 70 years is 1999. So what was the plan there? Well, the plan was to repeat these same experiments over and over again.
It's not broken.
We'll start another war.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to start the war, we had to have an incident.
Mm-hmm.
That incident was 9/11, which got us into a 20-year war. And in 2003, we invaded Iraq. So again, here's the 70-year bankruptcy cycle, Constitution enacted, financial agreement, Bank of the U.S. in 1791. Then we had the War of 1812, 1859, 70 years later is the Civil War. Then we had the Jekyll Island meeting to get ready for the 1929. That's where they planned the stock market crash. 1999, they planned the next thing they're going to do. And the next thing they were going to do is start a war in the Middle East.
And so we go to the airport, we give them American dollars, in turn take their money, hold on to it, and then
we
devise a way to turn that money into 10 times what's value.
We invade their country.
Right.
Burn their old money.
Right.
print their new money, and set aside 10 for us for every one that we give them, every dinar, every dollar, every mark, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So when their currency revalues, all of a sudden we have a full treasury again, and all of our debts are paid. So this was what caused us this to happen in 1999. And you could tell a lot of this because in 1999, a bunch of stuff changed. If you have a Social Security card issued after 1999, you will see on the front this usual stuff. It's printed on banknote paper. The word Social Security are on the front. You have your Social Security number, and you've got that memorized. But if you flip it over on the back, you have another number, and it's in red. What is red? Red is the color of the republic. Blue is the color of the democracy. Hence why Republicans are red and Democrats are blue, because it's all
British bank. British bank, right?
Right. So if you look at this 8 or 9 digit number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8, 9. That number is a bank account for this person, Zoe Q. Public, at a Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. That F number right there corresponds to a Federal Reserve branch. There's 10 branches. F is the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So it has a routing number. And I've actually done this. I've actually went through and I paid a credit card bill. I think I had an E, so it was the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. And then I had a bunch of numbers, 9 numbers after that. So I found out what the routing number, just like you have on a check, right? The routing number was for the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. And I typed that in as my routing number. And then I typed in the numbers on my account in red on the back of my Social Security card. And it took the payment and paid off my entire debt.
What?
This is like 2008. Then they came back and said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. That you didn't pay that. That's not paid." And I said, "Yes, it is paid. Here's the numbers. Here's the account. Prove that this account doesn't exist." And they threatened me with all kinds of stuff. We're going to ruin your credit rating, all this stuff. They never did. That Capital One credit card just simply disappeared off all my credit reports.
Genius.
It didn't say you can't do it anymore. They've now got things in place, but in the early 2000s, they didn't think anybody would be able to figure this stuff out. So here's the story, Tom.
Yeah.
There are 10 Federal Reserve banks in the country. There's 10 regions: Boston, New York, Philly, Cleveland, Richmond, Atlanta, Chicago, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Dallas, and San Francisco. They each have a corresponding letter, which is going to be on the back of your Social Security card. And that letter tells you which one of those 10 banks it's at. And the numbers after that is your personal account number at the Federal Reserve. Because here's what they did. And I'm going to stop sharing this right now. What they did was, get back here. What they did is that they had sold our national government's property, and then they sold our state government's property, and then they sold all of our gold and silver, and our. No, I want to see everybody. Just take me off this. And then they sold,
hold on.
He's like, I'm tired of looking at myself.
And then they sold our personal. They sold us as cattle. So that's the 1930s is the creation of the birth certificate. Well, the birth certificate is a financial instrument. It says this is a corporate asset. Its name is Michael Herbert Bara. Here's its footprint. Here's its Social Security number. They make you do that now. And yada, 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 yada. Here's everything about it. And it exists. It is a living, breathing thing, because under this agreement in 1933, you have to be alive. Corporations are dead. People are alive. You have to be a living, breathing person. So you have kind of a dual identity. You have your identity as a living, breathing human being, which has financial value.
Because of recurring revenue based on your ability to make money?
It's based on your perceived ability to make money.
Right.
So what they estimate, and this is how they do it, what they estimate is that, okay, everybody born in the year 1970, Mike Bara, is worth this amount of money over their lifetime. And they take that and they factor that in, and then they take everybody born in that birth year and they pile all that paperwork up. Now, if you have more than 4 financial instruments piled together, it's called a security. So what they do is they create a security for the year 1970. every person, every United States citizen born in 1970 has a value. And they put that all together. And there used to be a time you could go to the Fidelity website. And I got really clever. I'm like, I'm going to look for mutual funds. I go to mutual funds. And I type in 1970. And it says, oh, the mutual fund named 1970 has a value of $11 billion. Now, Tim, you're smart.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's 10 Federal Reserve Bank branches?
Because they would have to be able to.
You said it before, fractionalized reserve banking. Right?
Yeah.
If I write a check for $1,000, my bank takes that because it's a financial instrument to the Federal Reserve, and they get $10,000 back.
Right.
And then they take my $1,000 and give it to whoever I wrote to. So they've made $10,000 out.
Yeah, now explain that a little bit.
Well, I will, but I want to get to the point, to this other point first real quick, and then we'll get to that.
Okay.
So what they did is they created these 10 branches because that's, it's, again, this is all biblical stuff, the fractional, usury and all this shit. So each of us has 10 accounts, 10 different accounts at each one of those Federal Reserve banks with the number D or A or B or E or whatever, and then a different number. That's not the same number. We have 10 different accounts. The value of 1970, when I looked about 8 or 9 years ago, was $11 billion. So my personal value to the world, to the government, was $11 billion times 10, because every one of those accounts has $11 billion in it. So when Mike Bara writes a check, they go, oh, okay. Oh, Bara wrote a check. Okay. Does he have any money in his account? Oh yeah, he's still got 10 billion left. Here's his money, and here's the rest of the money that goes to the banks. So the banks can then distribute that as credit, because guess what? This is all credit. None of it's real money. It's just paper.
Projection.
It's projection. Right. And what is money anyway? Money is an agreement between two parties that this piece of paper has a value.
Yeah, it's a demand for payment. Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's a promissory note, which is a debt.
Right.
You pay a debt with a debt. Well, I want $10,000 from you. Well, here's 10,000 promises that I'll pay that. Here's an IOU. And it all keeps going in this cycle, but eventually it all collapses. So when you write a check, it's weird because it says there's Federal Reserve testimony in front of the Congress, where one of the Federal Reserve Bank guys says, they asked him, well, where does money come from? And he says, I got a kitty that wants out. And he says, well, it's created with a signature. The signature is what creates money. In other words, the blue ink signature of a living, breathing human being is the only thing that can create money. So they have had to trick us into using this system and creating these documents. When you apply for a $300,000 home mortgage, Rhiannon?
Yeah, that's why we use the blue ink.
The bank takes that to the Federal Reserve window, whether they approve you or not. They take that to the Federal Reserve window, and they get, what, 10 times $3 million out of that.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you got to wonder how any of these
banks at the end of the note is extravagant. It's
right.
Like 4 times the money that you borrowed.
Right.
Oh, I'll never see it. It's 30 years from now.
But you never see that. And also there's a reason why it's called a mortgage, because they expect you to be dead before it's paid off, right? That's the idea.
Oh, and mortgage insurance. That's another crop.
Another scam, yeah. And because the thing is, the application itself, anything that has your signature, if there is a monetary value attached to it, can be taken to the Federal Reserve and exchanged for currency. Okay. The problem is now we've done this so much that we're basically, the money is worthless. There's so much in circulation. The bubble is so big that it can't sustain itself anymore. So there's way more to this too, which is that, look, the other thing too is, when you buy a house, the bank doesn't loan you money for the house. They take your application. They take your application to the Federal Reserve window, and they look and they say, "Oh, Mike Bara, yeah, he's got $300,000. Oh, here's the $300,000 for his house." But then they trick you with the mortgage into thinking that they loaned you the money when they never had. All they did is they're passing the money through. You own the house. That's why it calls you the homeowner in the paperwork. If the bank loaned you the $300,000 for the house, how the F are you the homeowner in the document?
You're a renter, theoretically.
No.
So let me ask you this. So would you say,
But
would you say that those 10 institutions now that are basically just filtering money and living on promissory notes, basically, is still in debt to Britain?
Yeah, we're still in debt. That's what our $31 trillion national debt is, because then we started selling bonds and all these other things, which are all scams to keep money circulating and keep the activity going. And so all the recessions and all that stuff have all been planned.
So we found this idea basically to sell people, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically, to pay back this debt, but we don't pay it back. We just use it because theoretically we're greedy and we found other things to do with it. And so we're still in this system because we're in debt to the British banking system.
And the Warburgs and the
Endless
Rothschilds and all those other banks. So, and again, Rhiannon, you go look in your mortgages, and there's a thing right in there that says, at least it did in my mortgages. I went back and looked. I understand that I am giving the bank an interest in a property that I already own. You have to sign that before they'll give you the keys to the house.
Yeah, nobody.
The reality is, it's your house.
Like an attorney.
It's your house, not theirs, and they defraud you. They trick you into thinking that they loaned you the money and you have to pay them back with interest. So it's the biggest scam in the world. Everything, people should be able to just squat on whatever property they're sitting in when this thing all comes apart, which I think it will soon. So that's, there's a lot of complexity to it, even more than what I just said, but that's the way the system really works. And it's on the brink of collapse right now.
So Mike, what about 2008? Because I got into the financial industry and the banking industry in 1999. So I know like the bond market, with the rates just started getting lower from 1999. And then the crash happened in 2008. When 2008 happened, people were losing their houses. I mean, it was just so devastating. I'm just wondering, like, if there could have been any other loophole to prevent people from losing their house that was maybe hidden in the documentation somewhere that we did absolutely not know.
Yes, and I know many
to save everybody's houses.
And I know many people that have tried it. Some people have had some success with that. They've been able to avoid it, but the courts are all corrupt and they're all stacked against you. So, I mean, I've done all the paperwork. I've filed all these UCC claims and all this stuff. The Republic still exists, but unless you have a judge who is willing to accept the law as it's written, you can't make it work. They just cheat you out of it.
And then I'm sure you remember, Obama saying, "Oh, he's going to help all the homeowners save their homes," and Obama cares and all that.
Right,
stuff.
and all that money went to all that money went to Democrat politicians and their and banks overseas. That's where all that money went to, and to keep the wars going. Which are very profitable for these people. So, and the other thing too is that 2008 thing. When did it happen?
2008. 2000. I mean, it started in 2008.
And what day it was? Day was 9/11. It happened on 9/11. They did it on purpose just to get in your face and say, "We're going to manipulate the hell out of you, and you're not going to be able to do a damn thing about it." And
so I'm sorry.
Let me just finish. But go ahead, Tommy. Let me just finish. The reason they did that is because Obama was supposed to beat McCain, but McCain was winning. And which is unbelievable because McCain would have been the most catastrophe, terrible, horrible president ever in world history, besides Obama and Biden. But he was winning. And so they had to do something to change everything up. And Obama was losing 5, 6, 7 points until that happened. That was all arranged. That was all planned in order to get their guy into the White House to complete the destruction of America or to begin the destruction of America. Go ahead, Tom. What was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if you want to get into this, but there are some upcoming opportunities in additional markets to get ahead of this from happening again and be able to beat them at their own game, if you want to mention that.
Well, you can buy your own gold and silver. That's one thing. And I do have some as much as I can, but who can safely hold that Again, silver certificates are worthless.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm thinking more like.
I know.
Okay, all right.
And you want to keep it at home and not in a safety deposit box at the bank.
Because the bank owns the safety deposit
It's the
box and
bank
everything in it.
owns the safety
And if
deposit.
there's another big crisis, guess what? They're going to call a bail-in. Bail-out is when the government taxes us to pay banks off to make sure they don't go bankrupt. Bail-in is when the bank just takes everything you own in their bank and steals it from you. So remember, when you deposit money into a bank, you are deposing yourself of those funds, meaning that you're giving it to the bank and they're only letting you access those funds out of the goodness of their heart. That's literally
If you pay $3 at the ATM.
right.
To
If
get back.
$3 at the ATM. So the plan was to start this war in the Middle East and to pay off the 1999 bankruptcy. We're going to invade Iraq. And we're going to do the same thing in Iraq that we did in Kuwait and in Germany, Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and with the South. And we're going to print their new currency. And then we're going to revalue it. And all of us are going to get super extra duper rich and be able to buy up even more stuff, more of this planet. And maybe we'll let the plebs have a little bit. So Bush signed this executive order that allowed people to buy currency. It used to be that, like, you couldn't buy the Kuwaiti dinar, Rhiannon. And even if you knew that they were going to do this after they invaded Kuwait in
Right.
in 1991, you couldn't get the Kuwaiti dinar. It was not, you were not allowed to buy it on the foreign currency exchange, Forex. You had to be worth $10 million before they would allow you to buy any.
That's
So
where I was going.
Yeah, so everybody who had $10 million could do it. But Bush signed this executive order allowing people to buy the new Iraqi currency, which is this right here. So the plan was that we're going to do the same thing. We're going to invade Iraq. We're going to print their money. We're going to keep trillions of it in our treasury. And Trump he's come out in interviews and said, we have $35 billion worth of their currency. Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot when you have a $31 trillion debt, but let's think about it this way. A million dinar right now is about $1,000, about $1,100. So we have 35 billion divided by 1,000. We have trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dinars. So if this dinar is revalued, let's say it revalued, I don't know, this week, next month, and it was originally planned for June of 2011, then if you're holding 1 million of these, all of a sudden you're a millionaire. If it goes to 1-to-1, you're a millionaire. And you just take it to the bank and say, I would like to exchange these Iraqi dinars for US dollars. Although you'd be nuts to do that because, and there are people, and so that was the plan.
Yeah, that's what I thought about the dong.
Well, and the same thing applies to the dong. The dong is also one of the currencies that's going to revalue. You don't have any dong?
I
You want
do.
some dong, maybe? I'll give you some dong.
Dong.
I will too.
Oh, my God.
Hey, I got a question real quick. Not
Go
to
buy
get
it.
off subject, but do you guys remember? And with all this like currency information and the gold and the silver, I remember, and I can't remember if it was before the recession or after. No, it was before the recession. There was a craze, home parties, sell your jewelry, your gold and silver.
Yep,
So people
I remember
were
that.
coming-
Yep.
People were coming to your house. I don't remember who it was. They would come to your house. They would weigh. You would get all your friends together and they would weigh all your gold and jewelry and then give you cash right then and there at the party. And it was like this craze. And everybody was having gold and silver parties. Do you remember that, Mike?
This was what year? Do you remember?
It was before the recession, I believe.
Okay.
I think it was like
93,
2000
94.
Okay.
Oh, it was after that.
It's okay. So here's the thing. The plan is that these paper currencies are going to be replaced with commodities-backed currencies. In other words, the Iraqi dinar is not going to be just valued based on what the Iraqis say it is. It's going to be valued, let's say, on the price of a barrel of oil. So depending on how much oil they have, their currency is worth X number of dollars. Other countries are going to base it on their gold and silver holdings. So what I think was going on there was that people thought that this was going to happen before 1999. people who knew about how the currencies were manipulated. So they were trying to get all their hands on all the gold and silver, because here's the thing. When this paper system collapses, the monopoly money, people recognize the monopoly money is worthless, gold and silver are going to shoot up in price. Although silver can't shoot up too much because it's very necessary in our economy. It's in all kinds of equipment and industry and stuff like that. Gold, there's so much gold on this planet. It's like,
Yeah, we can make it ourselves, actually.
I don't want you to
You can
know.
make diamonds if you want to.
Right. So so it's going to have to be backed by commodities. So I think Rihanna, and that's probably what they were doing, is they thought it was going to happen then. And then it was supposed to happen in 2011. What happened is, at least what I'm told, is the good guys came along and said, no, you know what? Not today, Satan. Your run is over. We're going to get rid of this banking system. We're going to create a new equitable banking system, and we're going to reset all the currencies in the world. And eventually they're all going to be about the same. And we're going to place value in America on your gold, your silver, your oil, your natural gas. In Iraq, your currency is going to be based on the value of your oil, which is higher than the US right now because we've dismantled our oil industry in the last 2 years and we can't pump any. So, there's that. Vietnam, well, we don't have any gold. We don't have any silver. We don't have any oil. We don't have any natural gas, but we have the labor of our people. So the Vietnamese dong value is going to be based on the manufacturing capabilities of Vietnam.
That's the one I'm interested in.
And it's going to go from fractions of a penny to 5 cents. I also hear 47 cents, all the way up to 225 and even more than that when this reset happens. So that's the plan that's out there. And the only thing we don't know for sure when it happens, but it seems like it's closer than it's ever been, really close. We don't know what other consequences have to go along with it, like governments need to be removed that are invalid. And I'm not going to mention any current government names, but the U.S. And we don't know for sure that we're going to be able to take this into an American bank and receive a fair and equitable exchange. But it appears that that's the plan. And I've been tracking it for 10 years now, 12 years.
I do have a question for you, Mike. The ability to access that account on the back of the Social Security card, is that still an equitable situation?
Well, no, because that's going to go under the new system. That's going to go away. What's going to happen is they're going to tell the Federal Reserve, well, we don't owe you any money. All we owe you is paper. Here's your gold coin. You guys go away. You're out of business. The Treasury is going to take over everything. The Treasury is going to be in Reno. The new Treasury is going to be in Reno. That's, by the way, I know from my Secret Service contact that Donald Trump was in Reno last Wednesday past, meeting with Chinese and Iraqi representatives to finalize this stuff. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see dominoes fall. I have a friend, Jennifer Faladorian. She's a remote viewer. She's on my show on Mondays and Wednesdays. She said 2 weeks ago, we said, what's next? She said, resignations. Go look at a list worldwide of people in banking and government that are resigning their positions because they've been caught and they're given the choice. You can resign and walk away and disappear and not go to jail, or you can go to jail for the rest of your life. Take your pick. Or in some cases, it's far worse than that. You can face the ultimate penalty for some of the things you've done. But some of the people that have committed really horrible crimes, they're not going to be given the option to walk away. So, I'm just waiting for the first domino to fall. And the financial thing will be right there with it when that happens.
So is it your belief that this next fall will be on its own? We won't have to kind of initiate?
No, it's planned. But, I think we should help them. I think we should all go to the banks and take all of our cash out.
Okay, so that brings me to another question. You prefer, Mike, mattress money or chock full of nuts coffee can buried in the backyard?
I hate them all because none of them are safe. But maybe the reality is none of it is safe. The new banking system is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be based on quantum computing technology. and it's supposed to be set up. You know, Rhiannon Alley will get her very own Q phone, you know, which only she can open, and somebody would have to have your DNA and a copy of your aura to get it open. I mean, there's no way that you can fool them.
Biometric scanner type of thing.
Well, even more than that, because somebody could, you know,
Take
chop her hand off and use that and try to open it, but that won't work either. So they will know that it's you or not. This is what I hear. This is the rumor that I hear, and so it will be completely secure, and nobody will be able to steal from your accounts.
So you're saying digital currency?
It will be digital and it will be paper, because the paper there'll be coinage, gold and silver coins. There'll be paper. There will be digital currency like there is now on our cards, right? And there will also be cryptos. And I'm not going to tell you which ones to buy. I'm just going to tell you that I own a whole S-ton of XLM and XRP. And Theta and a few others, but XLM, and XRP are the ones that I own. Okay. And again, I'm not promising you're going to be rich, but I will promise you, if you don't do some of these things, you're going to be really poor, and you're going to have to be taken care of. So I hear there are big plans to change things, and you know, you have to believe. Although I'm very frustrated at this point, that have to believe that there are good people, there are good guys out there that are going to try to fix this thing, because the current system is dead. It's dead.
I've actually heard that with digital currency, the danger behind that is whatever government is issuing the federal digital currency devices, that they can turn off your funds if you don't believe one way or another.
Yeah, so that's exactly what the plan is. So the central bank digital currency, CBDCs they call them, they're going to try to impose that. The Federal Reserve is going to try to impose that in July. I hope we don't make it to July for them to even do that, because you know the thing is that we can't. This war is going on, but we can't get our side to fire a shot, right? I'm just waiting. Can we just fire a shot? Can we have our Fort Sumter moment and engage with these satanic SOBs, please? Because it's time. But that is what they're going to try to force. What I hear is that, you know, they're sitting back and letting all this stuff happen because they want to show people how terrible things will get if we don't make a change.
I think we already know that.
Yeah, don't we know that? Everybody who's going to be awake is already awake. So.
All right, Mike. So for chat, right? What would be the opportunist an opportunity in the near future would be to buy into the Asian market?
Well, I don't give financial advice, and I'm not giving
understanding regarding what looks like it's down the road.
No one on this show does, but I'm just going to tell you what I got. What I've done is I have gold, I have silver, I have Iraqi dinar, I have Vietnamese dong, I have Zimbabwe Zim 2008 AABB bonds. They say pay to the bearer on them. They'll tell you they're the 100 trillion notes. They'll tell you they're worthless. Okay, fine. Then you won't be too upset.
Yeah, they're worthless now.
Yeah, right now, but it says pay to the bearer on it, which means it's a bearer bond, not a currency. I have that. I have Indonesian rupiah, and I have some Zimbabwe agro checks, and I have XRP and XLM and Theta cryptocurrencies. So I figure if even 1% of this chiz is true, I'm gonna be buying my house in Vegas for cash, Rhiannon. I'm not gonna be getting a loan. So, but the thing is, you have to continue. So that's what I've done, and so I think you need to cover your bases with everything. You need cash. Well, what if the cash becomes worthless? Well, then you need gold and silver. What if that becomes worthless? Well, you know, it's never going to be worthless, but maybe people won't take it for exchange. Well, then you got to have some cryptos. So I have everything. And there are two sides, and they are in conflict. And, you know, it's like two boxers in the first round that are just dancing around each other and won't throw a punch.
But what's going to happen with everybody's debt that they have now? Like they have, a mortgage, they have credit cards, car payments. What would happen?
Well,
Would that disappear?
There are rumors, and there are people who attack this. Like Jordan Sather is really big on attacking this thing. It's called NESARA, N-E-S-A-R-A, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. And there's also a GESARA, which is the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, of which the United States and 209 other countries are a party. Under that system, all of your debts go away. They there's a debt jubilee, they disappear, they're paid off because they were never debts in the first place. They were all fraud. Because when you went to buy that car, you got a loan for that car. You didn't get a loan for that car. You bought it out of your own funds in the Federal Reserve, and the car dealer and Ford split it and fractionalized it 10 times. And then they made you keep paying them back and working and dying to make your car payments. So that stuff's all supposed to go away. And we're supposed to get new medical technologies, and we're supposed to get disclosure. Now, the problem is with disclosure is it's not just, I think alien disclosure, Tim, it's going to be 3 to 5 years down the road. Because
and maybe from the people too.
Once people just understand how bad they've been ripped off economically by the monetary system, that's going to take 2 or 3 years for them to absorb that. So getting aliens on top of that, I think, is just going to be further down. And when you find out about the crimes that have been committed against children and stuff by this corrupt, sick, pretend, fake corporate government in Washington, D.C., it's going to be really hard to absorb that. And I don't think we're ever going to be told the truth about a lot of this. They're going to keep the truth hidden.
They need to rewrite the history books.
They will. And who knows? I mean, who knows what we don't know? Who knows what's been a lie? I mean, you look at the Dark Ages, there's like no history. Like we stopped recording history at about 400 AD, right? We just stopped recording history. What happened? King Arthur.
Oh,
is he real?
Question.
How do we know Caesar existed and we don't know if King Arthur existed?
I got a question.
Go, Tom.
So, all right. So back to the Dawn and buying this currency. For those in the chat, if they wanted to do that, like I'd like to give them a little advice, right? So let's say there's somebody who goes, man, Mike, I like what he's saying. How would they go about buying this foreign currency?
Where do they go?
Well, one thing you can do is you can just go.
There you go. Yeah. I know they can go to the airports, but
you can drive to the airport, go to the currency exchange, say, I want 1 million Vietnamese dong. It'll cost you about $75 right now. But if it goes to 50 cents on the dollar, if it goes to 5 cents, it's $5,000. You made $5,000 on your $70. If it goes to 50 cents, you made $50,000. If it goes to 1 to 1, you made $1 million. So just go do that.
What do you got to lose?
Or you can go, you can order online. There are some good companies. I'm not going to give you the names, but don't buy it off eBay. Don't buy stuff off eBay generally. Buy it off of certified dealers. If you look, everybody who sold Iraqi dinar in the US had to be certified by the US government, I think by the Treasury Department. It will say that on their website.
So isn't that ironic? You can actually go to Amazon and buy foreign money.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, Mike, do you know anything about the IRS and filling out the W-9, giving authorization to the IRS to basically come after you for taxes?
Yeah, that's what the W-9 does. It says you can tax me on this. I'm not big on the whole W-9 thing. I just sign it. I don't really think about it. The IRS is supposed to go away in this process as well. That's another thing. So that
it goes to the 3-letter companies.
Yeah, because remember, they're not even American. They're a foreign corporation domiciled in Puerto Rico, operating on behalf of the European bankers, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the British Crown, all those people. Yeah. So who's a big British bank? Barclays or something. So yeah, they're supposed to go away as well because they're just collecting. Your taxes don't go to fund your government. Your taxes go to the foreign bankers.
Line their pockets, yeah.
Yep.
So I bought my dong a long time ago through the bank.
Yeah.
Just my local bank.
Yeah. Then you used to be able to do that.
Like I was totally crazy. Like, you want dong? Like, why do you want dong? And I'm like, just go get me some.
Yeah.
Do you think that they have it now?
What's that?
Do you think that they have Dong now? Like if somebody wants to go to their local
Oh,
bank?
for sure.
Yeah. I have heard that some do, but more and more banks are not selling it anymore. And the reason why is because we're really close to this thing happening.
Gotcha.
You can still go to the airport.
Or they believe. Yeah, we can get them to the airport because what if you're flying to Vietnam for a vacation? I mean,
Got you.
Saigon is a big party vacation spot. You can buy Thai baht and that kind of thing if you want to go to Thailand.
Oh, I'm going. Let's go.
Yeah. Thailand. Well, you've been to Thailand, right? You've been there.
Oh, yeah, like 100 times. Love it.
Okay. Don't know what to say about that.
I made this social security card for today. Robin
Banks.
So I thought we'd talk about Robin Banks tonight.
I love that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, people will criticize me for believing in this. People will criticize me. And so far they've been right. But I only have to be right on a single day, on one day. I mean,
Right.
and the thing is that there may be restrictions on this. I may not be able to talk about it. I may not be able to tell people whether I got.
Well,
paid.
there's definitely a pattern.
There will
definitely
be signs.
happens. There's a
There
pattern.
will be signs. You will see me. You will see me smoking a cigar next to my pool in my house in Vegas with Rhiannon there.
In his speedo.
Collecting her commission.
Serving me a drink with a little umbrella in it.
Collecting her
Makes
commission
her drink
for a
better.
cash purchased house. Yes.
That's right. Just make sure there's a slot machine.
Yeah. There will
Hey
be.
Tim, we got a
Wheel of
commercial
Fortune.
break coming up.
Yeah, we got a commercial break coming up because we got to recognize our sponsor. So here we go.
Okay.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm gonna take it for the energy. I'm gonna take it for the play. I'm gonna take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
This is Ray Hobbs from the UNX Network. Join the journey on YouTube at UFO Man. Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can unlock the truth with UFO Man, Tim Dust, Tom Reed, and Rhiannon Alley. Buckle up. It's sure to be a great ride.
Okay, we're back with Mike, Bara, Tom Reed, and Rhiannon Alley.
Hey, I was gonna see if Mike wanted to touch on the UAP hearings a little bit. I don't know how much time you got left. It doesn't look like much, but maybe just a couple of maybe an opinion on.
Okay, well, let me play the outline of the UAP hearing.
Okay.
Okay, that's only 3 minutes 53 seconds. So here's the outline.
In late 2017, media reports surfaced about activities set in motion by the late long-serving Majority Leader Senator Harry Reid more than a decade ago. We learned that there was strong evidence of advanced technology reflected in the features and performance characteristics of many objects observed by our highly trained service members operating top-of-the-line military equipment. We learned that for the past 8 years, military pilots frequently encountered unknown objects in controlled airspace off both the east and west coasts across the continental United States in test and training areas and ranges. We don't know where they come from, who made them, or how they operate. As former Deputy Secretary of Defense David Norquist observed, had any of these objects had the label made in China, there would be an uproar in the government and media. There would be no stone unturned and no effort spared to find out what we were dealing with. We can look at the recent incursion of the unidentified PRC high altitude balloon as an example. But because of the UFO stigma, the response has been irresponsibly anemic and slow.
Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential risks to safety and security, particularly from military personnel and capabilities. Congress and DoD agree that UAP cannot remain unexamined or unaddressed. We are grateful for sustained congressional engagement on this issue, which paved the way for the DoD's establishment of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in July of last year. Though AARO is still a young office, the spotlight on UAP in recent months underscores the importance of its work and the need for UAP to be taken seriously as a matter of national security. AARO has accomplished much in the last 9 months since it was established. The AARO team of more than 36 experts is organized around 4 functional areas: operations, scientific research, integrated analysis, and strategic communications. In the 9 months since AARO's establishment, we've taken important steps to involve and improve UAP data collection, standardize the department's UAP internal reporting requirements, and implement a framework for rigorous scientific and intelligence analysis, allowing us to resolve cases in a systematic and prioritized manner. Meanwhile, consistent with legislative direction, AARO is also carefully reviewing and researching the U.S. government's UAP-related historical record. AARO is leading a focused effort to better characterize, understand, and attribute UAP, with priority given to UAP reports by DoD and IC personnel in or near areas of national security importance. DoD fully appreciates the eagerness from many quarters, especially here in Congress and in the American public, to quickly resolve every UAP encountered across the globe from the distant past through today. It's important to note, however, AARO is the culmination of decades of DoD, intelligence community, and congressionally directed efforts to successfully resolve UAP encountered first and foremost by U.S. military personnel, specifically Navy and Air Force pilots. The law establishing AARO is ambitious, and it will take time to realize the full mission. We cannot answer decades of questions about UAP all at once. After all, a UAP encountered first by highly capable DoD and IC platforms, featuring the nation's most advanced sensors, are those UAP most likely to be resolved by my office, assuming the data can be collected. If AARO succeeds in first improving the ability of military personnel to quickly and confidently resolve UAP they encounter, I believe that in time we will have greatly advanced the capability of the entire United States government, including its civilian agencies, to resolve UAP.
Okay, that's the outline of the All-Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, or AARO.
Yeah.
I do have a couple more that I want to play real quick. Here's a 9-second one.
I want to underscore today that only a very small percentage of UAP reports display signatures that could reasonably be described as anomalous.
So that is something we've all known for a long time, that there's like 1 or 2% of everything that's out there. But there's one thing I have to play, because if I don't play it, you don't see what they're looking at. They're looking at objects that only go Mach 2, up to Mach 2. And there have been several reports from pilots that have claimed that there are objects hitting Mach 40. So if that's the case, they're not looking at the pilot reports, or what they're doing is they're just looking at the ones that are unclassified and not the classified versions.
Easily dismissed, right? Easily dismissed. I mean, it would look like forced theater to me with a tad of substance, but
Right. So here's the Mosul orb, okay? They start out with a comment that is very disconcerting.
I should also state clearly for the record that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics. In the event sufficient scientific data were ever obtained that a UAP encountered can only be explained by extraterrestrial origin, we are committed to working with our interagency partners at NASA to appropriately inform U.S. government's leadership of its findings. For those few cases that have leaked to the public previously and subsequently commented on by the U.S. government, I encourage those who hold alternative theories or views to submit your research to credible peer-reviewed scientific journals. AARO is working very hard to do the same. That is how science works, not by blog or social media. So one of the things that AARO does is high integrity analysis, as I've said. This chart represents the trend analysis of all the cases in AARO's holdings, right, to date. What you'll see on the left is a histogram of all of our reported sightings as a function of altitude. So most of our sightings occur in the 15 to 25,000 foot range, and that is ultimately because that's where a lot of our aircraft are. On the far right upper corner, you'll see a breakout of the morphologies of all of the UAP that are reported. Over half, about 52% of what's been reported to us are round orb spheres. The rest of those break out into all kinds of different other shapes. The gray box is essentially there's no data on what its shape is. Either it wasn't reported or the sensor did not collect it. The bottom map is a heat map of all reporting areas across the globe that we have available to us. What you'll notice is that there is a heavy, what we call collection bias, both in altitude and in geographic location. That's where all of our sensors exist. That's where our training ranges are, that's where our operational ranges are, that's where all of our platforms are. In the middle, what we have done is reduce the most typically reported UAP characteristics to these fields, mostly round, mostly 1 to 4 meters, white, silver, translucent, metallic, 10,000 to 30,000 feet, with apparent velocities from stationary to Mach 2. No thermal exhausts usually detected. We get intermittent radar returns, we get intermittent radio returns, and we get intermittent thermal signatures. That's what we're looking for and trying to understand what that is. Next slide. So I'm going to walk you through 2 cases that we've declassified recently. This first one is an MQ-9 in the Middle East, observing that blow up, which is an apparent spherical object via EO sensors. Those are not IR. If you want to go ahead and click that and play it, you'll see it come through the top of the screen. There it goes, and then the camera will slew to follow it. You'll see it pop in and out of the field of view there. This is essentially all of the data we have associated with this event from some years ago. It is going to be virtually impossible to fully identify that just based off of that video. Now, what we can do and what we are doing is keeping that as part of that group of 52% to see what are the similarities, what are the trends across all of these, do we see these in a particular distribution, do they all behave the same or not? As we get more data, we will be able to go back and look at these in a fuller context. How are we going to get more data? We are working with the Joint Staff to issue guidance to all the services and commands that will then establish what are the reporting requirements, the timeliness, and all of the data that is required to be delivered to us and retained from all of the associated sensors. That historically hasn't been the case, and it's been happenstance that data has been collected.
Okay. So what I want to do is talk to Mike. What are your feelings about what he said?
Well, what a bunch of BS. I mean, first of all, the thing I noticed about their chart is there's no sightings in Europe, apparently. Europe is completely clean. Usually they leave something out like Europe because the information there is going to contradict what their narrative is. So, again, I don't trust anybody on this Aero team. I don't trust anybody on the NASA team except maybe Travis Taylor, but Travis has a career to worry about. So, to me, it's just it's more cherry picking. It's more let's pick the cases that we can easily explain and focus on them. And it's like, oh well, none of this represents extraterrestrial technology. Okay, here's what I want to ask: what's your standard for identifying a technology as extraterrestrial? Can you explain that to me? What would be extraterrestrial technology? What would that look like? How would you define that? And why haven't you shared that with us if you're so sure that it doesn't exist? Please give us some examples of what extraterrestrial technology would look like and why none of these objects fit them.
Right. And he also said, I've been cleared to show this. This one's been declassified. So what about the ones that aren't declassified? Why
right.
going 6 or 10, right?
Yeah.
So
giving us like a little nibble, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always drip, drip, drip. But the thing I was going to say is this. If they're also saying, this is not extraterrestrial, to say that, they would have to know what extraterrestrial is.
Mm-hmm.
So they do know. That's what's hidden behind that comment.
But don't we have deep space satellites that can see like even an ant on the ground? I mean, with all the technology we have, we can't be so dumbfounded that, we're just only visualizing up to 30,000 feet. Really? Yeah. The commercial airlines go up to what, like 39,000 feet?
This 1 to 4 foot wide sphere thing. What's that? I mean, I before they showed that Baghdad video or whatever that was, I haven't seen anything like that. Why is that suddenly a thing? And okay, if they've determined that the Baghdad sphere isn't extraterrestrial technology, then what is it? If it's not extraterrestrial, how do you know that? Tell me.
Yeah, how's it flying? Tell us how it's flying.
Yeah, how does it fly? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the other thing is today I posted on the UFO Man channel, I posted another video from Poland where the same kind of sphere was seen.
Interesting.
And it was filmed. And it disappeared into the clouds. It looked identical, and I put it up and compared it between the Mosul, Iraq orb, and that one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing that they're coming out and saying, "Oh well, we don't know if this is extraterrestrial." Yeah, well, that's like, see, when they put the UAP title on everything, I think they were just trying to give themselves an out.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And playing on acronyms.
Well, yeah, because if it's a UFO, everybody jumps to the conclusion it's alien automatically. But with UAP, it could be a phenomenon.
Right.
So
and UFO is obviously an unidentified flying object, but it implies that it's alien, and they want to get that out of it. And anytime the government changes the language, you need to run away and refuse to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have pronouns. I have genitalia, just like everybody else does. That's my stand. Right. I'm not going to ever use pronouns. I'm not going to let them change the language on anything, especially not UFOs, UAPs. And also, Nick says he's the guy who came up with UAP. So, we love Nick. He's a great guy, but that's bureaucratic speak, bureau speak. So,
I think disclosure is already happening. It's kind of like an underground thing. It's disclosure underground. We all know what's going on, but
Yeah, but it's still funny why so many people want government recognition of the fact that aliens exist when we can discover it on our own. I mean, what I saw was not made on this planet, what I saw up close. I guarantee it. It was just what.
Yeah, and again, it's that's exactly right. Why do we care, and why should we care what the government tells us about UFOs? They've lied to us about everything else. They're going to lie about this too. So whatever they're telling us is not the truth. It's their narrative that suits their purposes of their particular.
Yeah, it's theater, man. It's theater, and if these last couple of hearings prove that, because we all know they have what they have proved, they wouldn't be spending their time trying to hide something if it wasn't there, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they would, just to give you an example, just that little piece we saw before, that the sphere moving was an unidentified object, because they have no idea what it is. Yeah. But they're so afraid to take that step because, it opens up a can of worms. So I don't even bother anymore.
What about the invasion of the balloons that we just had?
When it comes to
the balloon invasion. I mean,
the balloon invasion.
Oh, yeah. But they never came out and said that all of them were balloons. They said one was identified as a balloon. The others, they didn't know for sure, but they were balloon-like.
Right, and they had that one thing where supposedly it was a picture of one of them that was downed, and it looked like an Airstream trailer. Sitting there's a great meme of C-3PO and R2-D2 emerging from the thing.
Yeah, that's like, what it looked like.
Yeah, and it's just like, what the hell's going on? And I think all of this is to again, just to keep in their back pocket the Project Bluebeam BS, the fake alien invasion, just in case they're backed against the wall and their money's not worth anything anymore and they can't sell the birth certificate crap anymore. So, if we're going to maintain control, let's just pretend there's an alien invasion. So
right, you got to scare people. They keep people in fear.
Wasn't it MacArthur that addressed a group of military cadets and said that the next war would be an interplanetary war?
Interplanetary war, yeah.
I think most people would rather. I'm sorry. I think most people would rather live comfortably and feel secure than have rights. And I think our government is controlling that through fear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would rather have rights and live comfortably and secure.
I'm gonna do whatever I want.
All three.
That was that.
Yeah, the way things used to be, right? The way
Yes, the old US. Yep. Anyways, anybody have a last comment? Let's go around the panel.
What about chat? Is there any last minute questions in chat we can answer?
Oh, we've had a lot of good comments in chat. Esmeralda said, I really just want my government to tell me the truth.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, and I really just want my government to go away and not exist and never bother me again.
Yeah.
I want them to get out of the business of telling us anything so that we can figure it out for ourselves. That's what I want.
Esmeralda does have a question. She said, so we are lemmings to the government?
Yeah. We're cattle. We're a piece of paper. We're cattle. I mean, we're just
a commodity.
Look, the Matrix. Go watch the Matrix again in the context of what we told you tonight. That's what it's all about. It's commercial energy. It's money. The battery is us, the individual person, and they create this fake existence around us, this fake thing that we're in debt, this fake thing that we have to go to work every day to keep us productive and keep us feeding their system.
Yeah.
And I hate to go promote the Wachowski brothers or the Wachowski sisters or whatever they are this week, but also Jupiter Ascending is all financial. It's just a metaphor for the financial system. Go watch those two movies in context. In fact, I think I've got a video out there somewhere.
I just watched Jupiter Ascending, and it is a very good movie. Yes.
And again, it's like We use human beings to create products for us, the special people. That's the essence of it. And a lot of it's crap. I mean, a lot of that movie is crap. But
Yes.
especially
when it comes to like a metaphor, a simile, if you will, would you agree that like we're a commodity? So it'd be like, for every cow that's born, it's going to produce so much milk.
Yep.
And so I will sell you this cow for so much money up front, because after maybe a 36-month RMR or whatever, I'm going to, collect I'm going to make money back, and then you will have your ongoing revenue stream from that particular cow by its milk. So people are no different. Our government basically sells people.
They sold us
with the understanding that there's going to be revenue collected.
Yeah, we don't own ourselves.
Tommy, your birth certificate has been bought and sold probably 18, 19, 20 times, traded. And every time they do, they have to stamp it accepted for value, because that's what banks do. They say, we accept for the value, whatever the value is that's stated on it. Bam, bam, bam. There's stamps all over it. That's why you will never see Barack Obama's real birth certificate, because it's in the DTCC, the Depository Trust Clearinghouse Corporation in Washington, D.C., if he's even an American, if it's not in a Kenyan center somewhere. And all you can ever get is a copy of your birth certificate. You will never, ever see the original birth certificate, because it is a financial security. It's got bank stamps all over it from all the times they've sold you.
So you're saying from when I requested my original birth record, it was a copy and not the original?
Yeah, I am saying that, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
It looks like an original. It'll be perforated and everything, but
yeah, but it won't actually have your mother and father's wet ink signature on it.
No, it just has. It looks the copy. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Well, this was a fun get together. I enjoyed this.
Yes, it was. I really enjoyed it myself
Very
as well.
informative.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Good intel.
basically, everything's fake, and it's all going to come down soon. So be prepared.
So go out and buy your dong. Go out and buy your dong at the airport. There you go.
Go get some dong.
I'm actually going to buy some of that. I
think I am too.
You should. It's not very expensive. I mean, buy 1 million of it. Well, if it comes in at $1, you're a millionaire. And if it comes in at 5 cents, you got $5,000. Go have a nice weekend in Vegas.
How do you watch the fluctuation in that? How do you monitor that?
You would want to look it up on the Forex, which is the foreign currency exchange, FOREX. But that's the last, when the value changes, that's the last place you're going to see it.
But as far as you're concerned, we're pretty much from what you're saying, we are probably in the last phase.
I believe so.
This whole crash.
I believe so. I've been waiting on this. I mean, again, I was told originally it was going to happen June 30th, 2011. And I've been waiting since then. But now it seems like it's really, really close. Like we are in the last phase, because everything is happening.
It's on purpose.
And it's on purpose. So the question is, if the bad guys are in charge, we fall into the digital currency and tyranny. If the good guys are in charge, we get the good reset. We get the global currency reset. We get Nasara. We get Jasara. Nobody knows which is which. Nobody knows which is more likely, except, I have my remote viewing friends, and they all say, nope, there are good guys. There is a plan. They've got it under control, and we're going to come out the other end of this good, which is also, I wrote a book in 2010 called The Choice, where I talked about all the turmoil that was going to happen between 2012 and 2024, and we're right on track for it. And I say in that book, too, that from what I can understand from the physics that's driving everything, our consciousness, that, yeah, we're going to come out of it. We're going to come out of it good in the end. So.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming on, man.
Love you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, we'd love to have you back anytime. I mean, you're very interesting, very informing, and we're all friends of you here at UFO Man, as you well know. I want to thank, you're welcome. I want to thank everybody who participated on our panel. I also want to thank everybody that watched online and everybody who participated in our chat room for coming this evening. Next week, we have Mindy Tot Fest. going to be a very interesting interview. So please come by. We also are going to have some fun shenanigans between Tom and I, which we were going to do tonight, but we're going to leave off for next week.
That was too interesting.
Yeah, it was so interesting from Mike Bara that we just got carried away with that. So thank you very much, Mike. Good night, everybody.
Go Kraken. Let's go Kraken tonight. Come on.
Yep, go Kraken. All righty.
All right.
We'll see everybody next week.
See you in a month, man.